right, so welcome back. It's been a while since I've posted anything. Let's get everybody caught up. Right now I'm on the way to grab some coffee, and I'm going to stop off at the gas station on the way. But I don't know. It's been I think over a month since my last video on Project Blue, and you'll notice I'm riding around on Project Red, which is my almost completed previous project. Mainly just checking some things out about this bike, looking for a good reason to get out on the road a little bit, and figured I'd give a little bit of an update on where we are with Project Blue. So let's get the gas, and I'll just fill you in on some of the details. So any project, it's always difficult to have what you hope to happen become the reality. Project Blue is coming along just fine. Don't worry about that. But as much as I tried to plan this so that it would be a straightforward front-to-back project, as things unfold, plans change, new things come up. And what started out as a simple refresh quickly becomes a little bit more than a simple refresh. So right now is one of those periods in a project like this where a lot of the work is actually not being done by me. There's a couple of things in a project like this that I'm just not able to do at home. I don't have the tools or the equipment, and so I have to use third parties to get this work done. All right, so real quick, let's figure out what my gas mileage on Red is up to. I've done a lot of tuning on this to get it just right, and 41.8. I'll take it. Anyway, so the two main things going on with Project Blue right now are modifications to the cylinder heads and not modifications, but then also the body paint. I've had the motor parts off with Air Support BMW up in Canada. George Thomas is taking care of those for me, and what we're doing there is was interesting. I gave him a call and let him know that I wanted to rebuild this as an RT to be a long distance tour, modernizing it as much as is reasonable, but keeping it true to the spirit of a classic BMW motorcycle. And there's a lot of challenges with that. I want it to be powerful enough that I could run down the highway with modern vehicles. So I need it to be a little bit more powerful. I'm not looking for crazy performance here, but I definitely want to get more out of it than stock. And George and I talked a few times, and one thing that had come up is I found my way into an excellent set of 40 millimeter beam carburetors, and initially we thought, well, let's reflow the heads and try to make the most of having a 40 millimeter carburetor. And so that's what we set out to do, partnering that up with a asymmetric camshaft and a couple of other bits that we'll be installing. We were thinking that this would be a really good combination. I know a lot of people, you know, swear by the 40 millimeter carburetors. Some folks maybe don't think they're quite worth it, and I don't know. They ran on GSs, they ran on a lot of RTs and RSs in Europe. They, came on a few of them into the United States, and so anyway, it's one of those things where everybody has their own opinion about those carbs. Anyway, more recently, George, I think, decided that the flow work just was not going to be able to support the performance on the 40 millimeter carbs, so we're going to stick with the 32s there. That's fine. So I've got a set of 40 millimeters for some other project, or maybe they'll end up for sale. I don't know. We'll see how future projects go. I've got some other ideas that might change that a bit. So anyway, the engine parts have been off for a couple of months. The guys that do the work, all of these guys, and this isn't a slam on George or anybody like that. I understand what it's like to run a small business and things like that, but you call these guys and they'll say, yeah, I've got a 2 to 3 week backlog, or I've got a 2 to 3 month backlog, or whatever it is, whatever they tell you, and then you send them your parts, and for them, just like for you, life happens, and things take more time, things come up, so it takes a little bit longer, and as you're trying to plan out the timeline for projects like this, you just gotta roll with it. Sometimes a service provider is just going to take a little bit more time than they think, and that's okay, especially if they do good work at the end of it. So anyway, my engine parts are mostly done. They still have a little bit to go. Last time I heard from George, it's been a while, but I know he's got some things going on. But he's been good about sending me photos, and we've had an excellent dialogue about the project as he's been working on it. And I'm very happy with the attention that he's giving it, and the thoughtfulness that he's put into his side of the work. So when it's all put back together, I may take a ride out to George up in Canada to have it be my first trip once I get everything sorted on the bike. So what else? The other thing that is similar to George, the paint work. So I'm going a very different direction with the paint on this. I love the look of the RT, and I didn't really, care much for the silver gray that was on the fairing that I had. Even though I'm still including that as part of the project, or that inspiration anyway, the gray and the gray/silver and blue inspiration, and I just wanted to look like something that could be something that BMW might have done, but it, just like with the red bike, it's not something that BMW ever did do, obviously, but I'm taking inspiration from two designs that are genuine BMW, and we're using a modern interpretation of those colors. So, red started off as just as a plain blue bike. The azure blue metallic, I believe, is the color, with the white or light silver pinstripe. And after it had been in a collision with a deer, the previous owner put it back together, and did a really great job with it. But the fairing that replaced it was a silver gray fairing, which gave it an interesting look, which is sort of why I wanted to stay with those colors. The previous owner, Tom, he loved the bike, and I know he's following. So we're keeping the same colors, just taking it in a slightly new direction. So anyway, in the mid 90s, BMW made RTs in the R100 Classic flavor, which had a very interesting dark gray, dark metallic gray, and blue, sort of like a muted metallic blue paint with a fairly restrained pinstripe treatment. And I've always kind of liked that color. The label is the R100 Classic. It was a neat layout that was a little bit more modern, but I was not super wild about the colors. So I had to go to a different source for the colors that would be more what I'm looking for. Anyway, what I landed on was the late 70s RSs that had the two-tone. This is one of those color designs that there's a lot of mixed or incomplete information about what these colors were, what the pattern is, and a lot of the resources online have fairly spotty amounts of information about paint codes and whatnot, but it's the silver and blue that was on the RSs in the late 70s. And so using those colors as the palette, or as the inspiration for the palette, but the pattern of the 95 era R100 Classic, working with the painter, we came up with some options that I think are going to look really good. The original version of that paint, it had a white and an orange pinstripe, and I've seen a couple of them up close now, and it looks really good. I'm not wild about the orange part of that though, so we're going to use red for the pinstripe, red and white. So it's a close but not quite what BMW would do. Actually, if you look at these, if you see pictures of these bikes, often the orange, it's such a vibrant orange that sometimes it does read as red, but up close it's definitely orange. Anyway, so the painter that I'm using is a new painter, not the same painter that I used for red. That was done by Zach down at Black Wolf. He did a great job. But for this, I wanted to go in a little bit of a different direction, and also, Zach is outstanding, but he is like a 2-hour ride away from me, and I wanted to find somebody a little bit closer. And I met another guy who does nothing but paint motorcycles, and he's down in Addison, Illinois. And if it all comes together at the end, I'll share more details about who that is once we could judge the work of the final product. Anyway, let me run in here and grab some coffee real quick, and I'll be back in a moment. Okay, so back on the road, and let's see where this ride takes us. Anyway, my painter down in Addison, he's been really good to work with. He, like everybody else in the Midwest, does primarily Harley work. It's hard to find people that have a deep portfolio of non-Harley work. particularly if you're looking for like a paint specialty shop that really only does paint work. But when I found this guy, he had a couple of BMWs on his site that were clearly done by owners who had something very specific in mind, and it looked a little bit different, like a little bit more classic BMW. And so I figured I'd go down and have a chat with him. He's been great to work with, and he also, just like everybody else, he's like, oh yeah, it's just going to take 2, maybe 3 weeks, and it's been 2 months now, but that's okay. It just means in the meantime, I get to be patient, and I've been spending a little bit of time focusing on work. I had some international travel. I actually just spent a week in Helsinki with a nice one-night stay in Barcelona on my way back. And on Sunday, I get to head out to DC to have some work meetings, but also I'm going to pick up some used parts out in Ocean City that I found that will be good for future projects. One of them is a new rear wheel for Project Red here, which the rear wheel on Red is the brake surface is pretty much at the upper limit of its tolerance. So I've been on the hunt for a really good rear wheel for this. I think I might have found it. Anyway, so the paint, it's been 2 months, and I've been getting regular photos and updates. And one thing that I could say that I've really liked is that as this guy's doing the work, he's sending me photos of the work that he's done. We talked about the layout, and the colors, and the pinstripes, and all of that. And as he's been getting the work done, he'll send me photos, and we have just like with George, we have an ongoing collaboration about the work that's being done. And it's coming together nicely. I can't wait to get it all back together and put it on the bike. Haven't decided if I'm going to have sort of a big reveal of all of the parts, once it's all put together. Probably not. I probably can't pull that off because I'm going to be, doing episodes of the assembly process, and there's pieces of it that'll end up on the bike. So you'll see bits of it along the way. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting it all back together. We're kind of mostly on the home stretch. Some things that I still need to figure out are, the whole of the electrical system. So it's going to be, like I said, a long distance tour. If you've watched previous episodes, you'll see that I have the pop-out lights that I'm going to be installing, and and I want to have some adequate amount of power to run accessories. It's getting an upgraded electrical system. The engine electrics, the charging system is all going to have more modern equipment. I do need to figure out how to incorporate the wiring, those pop-out headlights and the switchgear for that. They don't really show up on any of the wiring diagrams. It's you kind of get to the end where you tap into them on the diagrams that you could find, but it doesn't really talk about what to do with it. It's probably pretty straightforward. It's going to take a little bit of trial and error, because I'm sure there's a connector or a piece of harness or something that I don't actually have. So we'll see. Anyway, so there's getting everything wired into the fairing, having auxiliary power for accessories, making sure that the lights that I want to put in are going to work, and finding the right LEDs for those housings. All that still needs to be done, but the bigger thing that I keep sort of going back and forth on is whether or not to keep the original wiring harness on the bike with all of its pluses and minuses, relays and whatnot, or if I want to go with the EME aftermarket unit that gets rid of all of that and simplifies the wiring itself. Doing that is what I did on Red. I used the R21 control unit on Red, which I really enjoy having. It was great to sort of just know everything that is in the wiring system on this bike, and not having to worry about things like LEDs or anything like that. Everything just sort of works, and it seems to be holding up pretty well. So there's that, and I actually do have a spare R21 unit, and I could probably just use the existing wiring diagram for the most part on Project Blue. But there's also a new version, the R3, which has some improvements and looks like it's a bit more straightforward to install. So I kind of keep mulling over whether or not I want to do that, or stay with the relay approach and build things out from there. The one thing I'm anticipating with keeping the original wiring and all of the original stuff is, I'll have to carry fuses, the old school, pillbox fuses that they put on these, which is not a huge deal, but the fuse box is not really in a convenient spot, so it's a pain if you need to get to it. Relays that can fail, some of the relays on these bikes are a bit difficult to find, or can be expensive. You're not going to find them around, so you kind of have to just have spares just in case. They don't fail often, but if you were going to go on a long haul road trip, you might want to have something like that. Where it's maybe not going to be as reliable all the time. I know there's a lot of old crusty guys who are going to yell at me about how these are totally bulletproof. And, let's face it, these BMW, everything is this is basically a hot rodded tractor setup, but they're still fun, and I love them. But they're not perfect. The old BMW stuff is fine. These Bosch relays that they use, everything is good. But there is something appealing to me, since I'm putting a lot of other modern stuff on the bike, to go with a more modern wiring approach. And I may still decide to do that. Since the whole thing is taken apart, it just makes sense. It's now or never. I am changing the ignition system. I'm changing the charging system. I'm adding LEDs, and I'm modifying the headlights, or the lighting system rather. So there's a certain amount of, it might just make sense to have the more modern everything. That said, doing the entire wiring system like that is a different kind of pain. You have to build your own wiring harnesses, you have to do your own connectors. That's what I did on Red, and it was fine, but there are elements of that process that were not, they were enjoyable, but they were also tedious, and some things just take up a little bit of space and can be awkward, particularly on a bike like Red, where you don't have a lot of places to hide stuff. Blue is going to be different. It's a full fairing, you have plenty of opportunities to change things around there. Anyway, it's a lot to mull over, and that's kind of where Project Blue is. I've got a few things that are sort of still in the rethink mode, and a number of things that are just waiting for parts to show back up at the house that can't do anything for it but wait. So sorry it's been so long. The things I've been doing in the meantime, other than my work travel, I am thinking hard about how to make it easier to do the in the shop videos, and I've been working on a little bit of a side project there to maybe address some of the challenges I've been having with using only my iPhone on a tripod. The number of times that you trip over a tripod, you knock it over, you move it, or you can't see
quite what it's filming. Because if you want to use the good cameras, you can't see the screen, yada yada yada. It's okay, but it might be time to do something a little bit different. So I'm working on some things in the background that might change that in the future, and maybe I'll do a video of it, maybe not. The only other thing worth noting, you might have noticed, if you really paid attention, I'm wearing a different helmet now. This is the Schuber C5. I've been on a quest to find quieter and quieter gear, just to preserve what's left of my hearing. And the Shoei RF 1400 was just not cutting it. It's a great helmet, but it just lets in too much noise, and there was nothing I could do to keep the inside of the helmet quiet enough to still listen to music and not just have the music be louder than the road, regardless of what kind of additional hearing protection I put in. And I've been buying just about every earplug option that you can find to test. That might actually be an interesting video for a different series. I don't know, maybe I'll start doing some minor gear stuff here and there. We'll see. But yeah, that's it. So life is good. Riding is good. We're getting into the riding season here in the Midwest, and hopefully we have more days like this than rain days. Soon we'll be going to Motobot here in Chicago, and if you're around, nice to see you. Otherwise, happy riding, and thanks for the time.